Hello Corporate Finance class, this is your online instructor Diana Block, and I wanted to take some time to give you some information this week during week 4 about the Module 4 problems that you're working in my finance lab. A couple of those problems do get pretty long, so I want to make sure you have all the information that you need to complete those successfully. So my suggestion is to open up a spreadsheet in Excel to get started. Excel is my favorite thing, and it makes a lot of these calculations much easier to keep track of. So what I've got here is a spreadsheet with a problem that's very similar to your first problem in my finance lab that you're going to have this week. So if you have already worked the problem and you had some trouble with it, this can help you. Or if you haven't started working yet, review this first and that'll help you stay on track. So you're going to find this paragraph is very similar to the paragraph in your assignment. It gives you the same information. So there's a few things about this I want to point out. I'm going to suggest you have a spreadsheet and where you have all your years labeled. Year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3. And we don't need years 4 through 7, but you might put them there just for fun, just to keep everything straight. But in this problem, we're going to deal with these years, years 0 through 3. So one of the first things that I want you to go ahead and lay out is the Macker schedule. The problem says that you're going to use the Macker 7-year schedule to depreciate the equipment that you're buying. So the Macker schedule is a set schedule given by the IRS that tells you how much of the total cost of the equipment you can depreciate each year. So that information is given. The Macker's percentage or the depreciation percent is going to be these exact same amounts that I have here as on your problem. That is a set amount. So what you're going to do when you calculate depreciation is you're going to take the cost of your equipment and whatever the cost is of the equipment in your particular problem, you're going to multiply that times these particular percentages so that you can get the depreciation amounts for each year. So in my problem, the equipment cost and even $1 million. So I took 1 million and multiplied times these percentages, and I got these depreciation amounts for each year. For whatever the cost of your equipment, you're going to multiply it times these set amounts, and then you'll know what the depreciation is each year from year 0 all the way through year 7. Okay, so we've got that. The next thing I want you to look at is changes in net working capital. Now, they tell us in the problem how much the net working capital is currently without this new project. So you might go ahead and put that down just so you have it. The net working capital without the project is going to be given to you. So then it's going to tell you in the problem what the net working capital is going to go up to for each of the 3 years of the project as well as year 0. So it's going to tell you year 0 net working capital goes to something, year 1 it'll be something else, year 2, year 3. So what you're going to do then to find out the change in the net working capital is clearly you're just going to take the net working capital for that year and subtract what it was before this project or without this project. So then you will have your change in net working capital. So whatever they tell you the net working capital is going up to in year 1, you'll subtract the original net working capital from that, and then you will know, the previous year net working capital from that. Then you'll know what the change in net working capital is for that year. So then in year 2, they tell you what net working capital is. You'll subtract from that the previous year, and then you've got your change in net working capital. So you can see from my example how we're getting the net working capital for each year, finding out what the change is, and from that, we can determine what that cash flow is from the changes in net working capital. So we've got that. Then you're going to get into the section where you're calculating the actual revenues, costs, and income and cash flow. Okay. So what the first thing you're going to do is calculate what the free cash flow is for year 0. This is at the beginning of the project. So since it's the beginning of the project, there isn't going to be any revenue or costs. You are going to have depreciation, remember, because Mackers has depreciation in year 0, and which means you're going to have tax. You're going to calculate your tax rate on this taxable income, which is going to be nothing but the depreciation amount. So then you'll determine your net income by subtracting your taxable income, well, subtracting the tax from your taxable income. You end up with net income. Then you're going to add the depreciation back on. And then you're going to subtract whatever your capital expenditures are. So that's the cost of the equipment, is what we're talking about there. And then you'll subtract the change in cash flow from the net working capital. And then you'll end up with your free cash flow for year 0. So you're going to repeat that for every year, year 1, 2, and 3, except in years 1, 2, and 3, now you're going to have some revenue. So on the revenue, it tells you how many products they expect to sell and how much they're going to sell them for. So you'll just multiply the number of products times the price, and that's going to give you the revenue. It is also going to tell you in your problem how much the variable costs are per unit. So you'll subtract that as your cost of goods sold, your variable costs. And then you'll subtract your depreciation that you've already calculated. And you'll end up with taxable income, calculate the tax. Once you subtract the tax, you'll have your net income. You're going to add the depreciation for that particular year back on. You're going to there's no capital expenditures after the first year, not for years 2 and 3. Then you're going to subtract your cash flow. That's from change in net working capital to end up with your free cash flow. And so in the final year, there may be, depending on your problem, there may be some cash flow that's going to come from selling the equipment. So if their problem says that you're going to sell the equipment in the last year, then what you're going to do is take the original capital expenditure price, subtract the depreciation that's been deducted so far, and then what's remaining is going to be a cash flow in the final year under the capital expenditures, because you're going to sell the equipment for that much. So if you can just take a look at this example and all the information that I have here, that's going to give you an outline to complete the first problem in the module for My Finance Lab assignment. So if you have any additional questions, again, feel free to contact me if you need more information than what I have here, but I believe this will give you a good start, and it'll kind of help you get your information organized so that you can calculate everything easily. The second problem that you're going to have in My Finance Lab is going to be very similar. You're going to use the 5-year Macker schedule instead of the 7-year. So that is one thing that will be different. It's the same concept. You'll just be using the 5-year schedule, which is a set schedule again. So these numbers that you see in my Macker schedule are the same ones you'll use for the 5-year depreciation schedule. So you'll calculate the depreciation amounts based on these 5-year schedule percentages. So other than that, it's pretty much the same process that you're going to go through. You calculate your revenues, your costs, depreciation, to get the free cash flows. You're going to calculate your changes in net working capital, same as before. There's not a lot of change in net working capital going on in this problem as there was in the last one, but the process is still the same. And so when you get down to the bottom, you want to calculate your NPV. Of course, you're going to use the NPV function, and you're going to use all of these cash flows across the bottom. You've already got those calculated. If you use this format, you're just going to get the present value of all these cash flows, and then you're going to add back or subtract out the initial investment here, and then you've got your NPV. So I do suggest using that NPV function on both of the problems. But this is the first two problems, examples very similar to the first two problems for the My Finance Lab Module 4 assignment. So I hope to hear from you. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to help you with it. Have a great day.